Hi everyone, it's Will, founder of Tend here. Welcome to another Relief Hub episode. So today I'm really excited to have another one of our in-house team. So Tim is here, Tim Doan of Tim Doan Clinics. So when we first started out, we went to our first trade show and I was all there by myself, sort of got this really great little product and just trying to find my way. Tim was the guy who helped me out, saw the product right away and was really interested in it. And so he's been part of this journey for us and has been incredibly helpful. So we've got some good questions, but the first one is, Tim, how does a police inspector become a sports therapist for international athletes and world champions?
I think you get wise, don't you, and realise what you want to do in life. I don't know. I guess all my working life, I've done things to help people. I've been involved in sport all my life. I've been injured doing sport and I've been injured at work on a number of occasions. I've had loads and loads of physio. And I realised it was something I really liked. And I did my time in the police, loved every part of it. I did a lot of things, saw a lot of things. But when I finished, it was like, well, that's not the end for me. You know, you see people retire and they die and it's sad. But I've just so much interest in my life. There's so many things that inspire me and interest me that I thought it was a great opportunity and to actually fulfill a bit of an ambition really and connect the sport that I've always done with helping people, you know, with their recovery and helping them be better in their sporting environment. And it just kind of fell into place, I guess. Yeah. I mean, you talk about helping people because one of the stories I always talk about, which is I find fascinating, but also just shows how effective Tend is at solving people's problems, was the lady who came into your practice with a 9 out of 10 pain. It was thereabouts, yeah. And
you treated her, and then she came away crying. And I'll let you take the story from there. Well,
we started from the beginning really, because I met you at the trade show and you were stood there all forlorn with your beautiful display stand. And I was attracted to, firstly I saw the device and I'd actually been playing hockey and had a bit of a hockey injury on my arm. And I just saw it, golfer's elbow, I thought, that'll do for me, I'll have a look. And we had a chat, we got on well obviously, and I could see straight away the quality of the product. It was something I'd never sort of experienced before. And I think I'd been probably working for about 10 years then in the industry. And I just thought, this is a fantastic tool. And so I took one to my hotel room that night and tried it on my arm. And the injury was a bit worse than I'd expected, so it probably wasn't as great on that area because it was a bit painful. You realise if it's painful, you don't press on it. So, but what I did have, one of my injuries was a motorcycle accident when I was in the police. And I've had a spasm at the top of my neck for best part of 30 years now. I always say it was like 10 years ago, but it's practically 30 years. And that has affected me. I'd have my head, moving to one side just to cope with the pain. Or even just as a habit. I think that was the biggest problem. There was always a spasm there. So I used the device in the room and I just thought, this is nice. That was my only thought. It was a new product and I didn't really know how to use it. But I used it and the next morning I woke up and the spasm had gone.
Wow.
That spasm has never come back. And hence the following conversations we had about how wonderful the device was. We stepped forward, that was on I think the Thursday of the trade show.
Yeah.
The first client I used it on was the following Monday. And exactly as that, it was a client I'd dealt with, I think back injuries and things in the past, but nothing to do with the knee. And she came in, she had walking poles, a knee support on, and was pretty much giving me an 8 or 9 out of 10 pain sensation, particularly when it was palpated. And I thought, you know what, this device, it worked for me. And I said, I've got this new device, let's give it a try, shall we? And she was like, anything, absolutely anything. So I did my usual assessments and I actually ascertained there was nothing structurally wrong with the knee, that was the main thing. I realised that there's lots of nerves around, particularly in the inner knee. And I realised it was probably like a nerve sensation. She'd obviously upset it and I just needed to sort that out. So I got to with the Tend, probably spent 3 or 4 minutes on it. And she sat there and she started to well up, and I thought, oh God, what have I done?
Yeah, it's
And
like,
I
oh
was
God,
like-
quick, onto the insurance brokers.
Oh, absolutely. So I just stopped and went, are you okay? And she was like, the pain's gone. And I'll be honest, I was as surprised as she was, because all I'd done is I'd targeted a painful area with a device that I'd used on my neck. And so the first two uses of it have been the first two miraculous uses. And as I said many times, it's not a miracle tool. It's a tool that can be used really well in an area where you've got a problem. But you don't expect a miracle. You've still got to have a bit of an understanding what you're doing with it. But those first two uses had probably the best results I've ever had. And I keep getting the occasional person who'll have a similar sort of response. And the beauty of using it as a therapist is your clients see you use it with no sort of expectations that they want to buy it. You're just using it because it's a really good piece of kit. And the number of people who have bought them as a result is quite astonishing, really.
Yeah, I mean, I still remember getting that message from you on Monday, and just thinking, God, yeah, this is fantastic.
Well, I didn't know whether I could justify stocking them. You know, I was a small business at the time, and I didn't think I could afford to sort of, you know, splash out a load of money on a load of devices that, you know, everything costs money. But my mind was completely changed with Jilly when she was in. Good shout out to her there.
Yeah.
But I've seen her a number of times since. She still has the device. She's bought the glide head for it. But I've never treated a knee since. So, you know, that's testament to how effective it was on that particular injury. So, yeah.
That's good. And then I think the other thing that I've found really helpful working with you is your ideas on new product development. Because really the focus was really a lot of down to your input when we launched that.
Well, the thing for me was that it was originally designed for working on tendons, wasn't it? That was the original brief, and using focal vibration in an area, the tendons are very compact areas of the body, and to try and get any stimulation in that area is quite difficult. So the thing for me was that I knew it was designed for that specific area, but what I was finding was that the focal vibration was really helpful in other areas of the body. So I was using it in trigger point areas. I mean, particularly the neck and shoulders are a really effective way of loosening it off, because it's kind of non-invasive. And so the thing I found was when I was using it and in a very focal way, my hand was sliding down, if I had some oil on, was sliding down the actual body of the device. And I remember messaging you saying, it'd be a great idea if we had like a silicone slip, a sleeve that just fits on the metal part that was maybe ribbed, and I could stop my hand sliding down it. And then you said, oh, we've got better than that. And I remember Rob actually was saying, nah, it looked rubbish. Yeah. And I agree. You know, the device is a really high-class piece of kit, and sticking an extra bit of rubber on there just to have a functionality wasn't the best idea. But, you know, with all these things, you come up with an idea and somebody goes, well, how about this?
Yeah, it's like it helps seed, and that's the thing, and that's why it's so important we work with people like you, is because you're using this product day in, day out. Sure. You know, you're I hate these sort of jazzy phrases, but you're on the coalface. You know, you're the one who's using it. So that's why it's so great when we can have your input and insight, and then it marries so well with Rob's design. Yeah. Because you can seed the idea, and then Rob can go away and be like, right, let's take that seed.
He's done that a few times, hasn't he? Rob's a genius.
I mean, if he's listening, he's going to get a big.
Well, I hope he is, because he is. The vision of what you want to achieve, but the manner in which you achieve it is the thing for me. The product is superb. You know, the quality of it is second to none. So when you said, actually, we've got something probably a bit better than that, and then you produced the Focus, I was like, bang, this is exactly what I was wanting, because I've gone from using a device that's conical, and obviously for people who are listening to the podcast, they'll have seen 10 devices probably, but I mean, as always, here we have in my pocket.
Never lost without one.
Well, it's not, oh gosh, I've left it downstairs, isn't that typical?
Yeah.
So, yes, they usually end up in my pocket. I walk home from work with them, and it's like, oh, I've brought the blooming 10, because they're so small, they just fit in your pocket. But that slim device just allowed me to use it like a pen, so I could be really focused in those delicate areas around the neck. And one of the things we keep hearing is it safe to use in the neck? And I was like, it's really, really safe, because anywhere you're prepared to press and push and touch it with your hands, if you put the device into that area, you don't even have to turn it on, and you can get some stimulation. You put the focal vibration onto it and boom, it's great. But I find if you use it in like a pen style, it works really well. So for me, having the variety of different ends just means it's easier for me to use. The other side of the development was, well, when I'm using it in this area, I find that this end is just a bit too pointed.
Yep. Yep.
And
yes.
and I thought, I just wonder, because like we have the massage guns with all the different heads. And the irony is that on my massage gun, I only ever use 2 of those heads. I've had numerous devices, and I never use the pointed finger. I never use the one that's like a C shape. I just use either the big brown ball or the flat head. And I said, maybe we could do like a massage gun. Could you perhaps make a flat head for it? And Rob, of course, true to form, sent him a picture, and he's like, yeah, be fine. And I don't know how, it wasn't very long. But
It's like a week, I think.
It was about a week, wasn't it? And he produced this CNC'd orange prototype.
Yeah.
And I thought, perfect. And then I realised it actually had a motor in it. I was
Yeah.
like, this is crazy. In fact, that device at the moment is with my daughter, Steph. Give it back. But yeah, it was great, and that was it. It just filled the gap for what I was needing at the time. Because the beauty of that is you get the vibration through that. You can press in harder because the surface area is so much bigger. And again, for those people who worry about it into the neck and shoulders, you're putting something, I don't know, it's about 1 inch, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you're putting something about 1 inch circular into that area. You would have to press really hard or stupidly to actually cause any harm. And yet you see people with scrapers and actually people using massage guns in those areas.
Yeah.
They're contraindicated in the cervical spine. You shouldn't be using them in that area. That is dangerous.
Yeah.
But the tend is so delicate in the way it works and very focused that I don't see any dangers at all.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing we really wanted, is we wanted, when we were creating it, is we wanted, first and foremost, it's got to work,
Yeah.
it's got to solve a problem, but then secondly, it's got to be easy to use. And so when we're running through like the user interface, we've made sure it's super simple with one button. But the same with the attachments. It would have been very easy for us to just copy every other brand out there and just launch it with 69 million attachments for the sake of it. But is that going to make it easy to use?
No.
And is that going to solve a problem? No. But then when we have it out working and talking to people like you, that's when we can really work out, okay, there is a problem here that needs to be solved, and Tend, we can adapt, we can come up with a new design at Tend to help solve that problem.
And to be fair, you came up to solve a problem that wasn't really a problem in terms of the focus. I could have just worked around it.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to a guy last year at the expo, and he couldn't decide which device to get, and we were trying to determine how he would mostly use it. And he said, I'm going to use the conical one, I'm going to use the deep. He said, because if I'm worried about a hand slipping, I'll just put some kinesio tape around it. And I was like, there's always a very cheap solution. But the point for me is that either of them works perfectly well. It does the job exceedingly well. But I don't have to have one over the other. I just choose the one that I think at the time is most appropriate for the thing I'm doing at that time. Yeah. But I could equally pick up the other with any of the heads on it and still do a really good job of it. It's just about that, when we're talking about perfection and trying to get that extra percentage, having the choice of the different heads, having the choice of the different shapes just makes it easier for me, really.
And then talking a bit about perfection and getting that extra percent, you work with quite a lot of international athletes.
That is a segue, isn't it?
Yeah, you're really good at this now. I'm always interested, we put these people on pedestals because they're fantastically good at what they do. How is it when you treat them? Are they any different to the likes of Gilly, or talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, some people get all excited about treating international athletes as though they are therefore better themselves because that's what they do. And for me, Gilly was as important an injury to deal with as any of my international athletes. And, there's quite a number in about 5 different sports that you know perform on an international stage. Of course, you've got to consider that extra thing you're doing for the international athletes, because what we are trying for is that extra 1% that makes a difference between a gold medal and nothing. And that's ultimately the way that I kind of work with them, is to try and make them that bit better and give them the bit that's missing from their overall performance, I guess. I wouldn't necessarily treat them any differently, but then I would treat every single client differently. So you could have 100 people with the same injuries, but they would all be treated somewhat differently depending on what it is. You know, if they're 80-year-olds or 30-year-olds or 20-year-olds, they're going to need a different sort of response than just saying, oh, you've turned your ankle, we'll do it this way. Even taping techniques, I will tape people with the same injury in different ways to give a different response to what they're trying to achieve. I've done some taping that has lasted incredibly well. We'll come back to that possibly at one point. But in terms of the athletes that I treat, I'm just really fortunate that I train people who do perform, or sorry, I treat people who perform at a very high standard. But the thing is, the people I treat, they don't have the egos.
Okay.
These are people who perform at the highest level in their sport. There's no arrogance about them.
Yeah.
They're just genuinely nice people. And
well, probably because you're helping them as well. I mean,
well,
that's the thing.
I guess, yeah, but I mean, people pay for the treatments, and so, you know, they've got a right to expect one thing or another. I do a sponsorship deal for youngsters.
Yeah.
I think it's really important when you've got people performing at a really high level. What you find is that they're going and competing in Spain or Japan, and who's paying for that? And the reality is it's generally the parents or any sponsorship they can get. So when you've got somebody who's performing at a high level and they're like at 95%, and they're going into a competition with a little bit of stiffness, that's fine. They aren't going to think about the extra money they're going to spend then for a treatment.
Yeah.
But that's the treatment that they need. Because, you know, when we're talking about like the Olympics, you've got all sorts of treatments leading up to and during the events. But when you're talking about somebody who's perhaps doing karate for England and they're 16, 17, they haven't got that support at the event. So for me, anything I can do to make that better for them means literally the chance between getting a gold medal and nothing. Yeah. And if you're talking about climbing, just being able to sort of reach that hold there versus missing that hold, the touch will gain you the win, and a grip and actually pulling up from it will gain you the win on top of that. So for me, it's quite important really that the area that gets missed because people perhaps can't afford it or justify the expense or perhaps don't realise the benefit they're going to gain, that's provided for them. And it really came to the fore with some of the parents of international athletes that I treat, and you know, discussing, oh, they're going to Madrid this week, and like, they're paying for it, and we're going to watch. It's an expensive game, and I've done it with my children who have gone about all around the country, and nobody pays you or supports you for that. So I just thought it was that opportunity really to put something back. Yeah. Because people say, oh, well, you're losing money. It's like, I'm not really losing money because I wouldn't be doing the treatment in the first place.
Yeah, and goes back to what you were saying about helping people, right? This is why you got into doing it.
Yeah, it's just giving a bit back. And obviously, I can't give everybody treatments for free, otherwise what would be the point? But what I do obviously then gain, because a lot of the kids, they're really good at Instagram, social media, and they'll give me a shout out and stuff. So yeah, they're paying for the treatments in one way or another, aren't they? But it's really nice to see their progress and actually how they cope with... one of my climbers, he got a really nasty injury in his shoulder, and how he's actually dealt with that and what a mature individual he's been to deal with that, you know, because he was at GB level and he's had to take a step back because of his injury. But, you know, credit to him, he's coming back, and he's coming back stronger. So, yeah, everything I can do to help him on his way, of course I will.
Yeah, I mean, we there's another one of these chats we've done where we talk a bit about mental health and that side of injury recovery. When people are talking about being injured, it's more around the physical side. Is that you're, you know, you are physically in pain, but I always think it's quite interesting to what about the mental side, you know, whether that be an elite athlete who is missing a competition, or just someone like me who loves exercise, and if I'm injured, you know, I'm not getting that relief from the day to day. You know, that it's almost, you know, I love going to the gym every morning because it sets me up for the day.
Yeah,
you know, more than anything.
And if you can't do that, your habits change, then you've got to compensate.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually have a client who he has to run. He has to run for his mental health. Yeah. And you know, in terms of the pressure to get somebody better, I feel like I can do more if I can help him and I can keep him running. I feel like I'm doing more than just my job. Yeah. Because for him, that is his therapy, is running. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's a really, really important aspect. Yes, some people, running is literally their drug. Yeah. And you know, it's not a bad drug to have, and you know, doing CrossFit or the gym or whatever, but it's a good habit to have. And I think if you can get into a habit where fitness is at the fore, then all the nasty habits can be left behind, can't they?
I mean, I saw a really good post. It was a rubbish story because I can't remember the guy's name, but he was saying that he felt physical fitness, so that's strength, but also VO2 max. If you are physically pretty strong, and if you've got a decent VO2 max, that will improve your life quality and life expectancy. Oh yeah. More than anything else combined. Smoking, drinking, eating bad food. Yeah. If you've got a bit of strength and you've got reasonable VO2 max, then you are head and shoulders above anyone else in terms of. I
think you've got to also think, how do you get your VO2 max, and a lot of that's through training and having a healthy diet. And there's a lot of stuff coming out recently in terms of the diet and its effect on your mental health, your diet and its effect on your longevity, on things like Alzheimer's that are vastly related now to your gut microbiome. These are all things that are coming in the last few years that people never had any knowledge about whatsoever. I treat a lot of ladies 50 plus, and the big concern for them is bone density. And the most important thing you can do to solve that problem is eat well and train and get strong. The stronger you are, the better you are in terms of your bone density, and also the more capable you are of stopping yourself from doing those things like falling. Yeah. You know, when people get older and they get a little bit more fragile and they can't get the balance very well, the first thing they do is they fall and they break the wrist. A few years later, the thing they do is they can't get the wrist there in time, so they fall and they break the hip. And you look at the morbidity rates for people who fractured the hip over 65, and it's really high. And you can prevent a lot of that just by being healthy and getting yourself strong. And I think it's important these days, people are starting to realise that being strong and going to the gym is actually beneficial to your long-term health. Yeah. And not just your long-term health, but it's this health span versus your lifespan. I want people to be strong right the way through their life. I mean, I've got a guy who I treat who's 86, I think he is now. And he's been active all his life. And he's still, in fact, he's cycling Land's End to John O'Groats in summer, because he's never going to give up. Yeah. And it's people like that really inspire me. So yeah, we have to focus on having the habits that get people out there and training. But the treatments are all part of it, because in order to train, you need those niggles to be kicked out of the way so that you can loosen them up, and then they can do their exercise and it be beneficial, rather than just sending somebody off with a set of exercises and then saying, do these. Well, they can't do them. Yeah. And so they think, well, that's a waste of time. So they don't go back to the doctors. And of course, they've not gone back, so that's a success. So we are skewing our sort of figures quite a lot through the health system, because people aren't necessarily having the right treatments. And something is being classed as a success because there is no follow-up given, rather than wondering, well, did this work? Did it? Yeah, and I guess that's, I don't have any criticism for the people working in the industry, because there's some fantastic therapists, physios and the like, and doctors who work very, very hard. But I just sometimes think our focus is a little bit skewed, because I get the benefit of it. I get all the people that say, well, it's going to be 6 weeks before I can go and see the physio, and I know they'll only give me exercises, and obviously my task then is to try and make them better before they get that appointment, so that they can actually cancel, you know, in a healthy way rather than not really knowing what's happened to them. So it's an interesting sort of situation, isn't it?
Now I know you haven't got much time left, so it would be wrong of me to not mention this one topic. So, because it's something that I know is really close to your heart. So earlier you spoke about always walking with a tent in your pocket.
Oh yeah.
How many miles or kilometres has that tent done?
Well, I was trying to work it out. I think it's certainly by the end of this year it'll have done well over 1,000 miles.
Yeah, on foot.
On foot,
Yeah.
yes. I believe my 10 Focus is the most travelled 10 device in the world, accompanied that is. You'll forget about the flights from wherever it is, but yeah, I think it's one of those items. We say about the items in your clinic. What would you keep? What would you use? And the honest answer is that I'd get rid of everything if I had to, except the tent, because it's useful in so many different situations. And having that with us, I know they say that you carry your fears, you know, when you're walking, and people come with 15-kilogram rucksacks and they've got everything in there just in case something goes wrong. And I get that, and they very quickly decide, well, yeah, that's probably too heavy. But the thing that's always worth carrying for me is the tent.
Yeah.
And I carry the Focus. The only reason it's just fractionally lighter than the Deep.
Yeah.
And I've carried that on Camino de Santiago last year, the Coast to Coast in Britain, and also the Camino de Santiago the previous year. And we're going back to Portugal in August, and we'll be doing another 250 miles-ish. So yeah, it's had some mileage, but it's also had some use because, you know, you're just walking every day. It can be quite challenging sometimes, particularly the heavier the bag, the more challenging it becomes. But just working out those little niggles you get around your knees or in your lower back or in your neck, just those areas that get tight when you're walking, I just find it works brilliantly. And the number of people who've raised an eyebrow and like, oh, that looks good. Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those things that, you know, I'll happily lend out to people and let them have a try of it, because they realise that something so simple can actually have a little benefit for them.
Yeah, and if it's something you love doing,
yeah,
this is what we want to do. Is we want to help people who love something they do, and they just want to do it a little bit longer or a little bit better, or they want to do that thing pain-free. It's
just keeping going, isn't it? Yeah. And I'm, as you know, I'm not somebody who wants to ever just stand still. I'm always wanting to progress and keep going, and I'm mindful I'm getting older, and I've got to keep working, I've got to keep training, I've got to keep doing stuff to keep me strong, both for my job, but more importantly for my life, you know, the things I enjoy doing. Yeah. You know, if we're going to go walking across Spain, it's just me, you know, me and Val do it, and it's great. It's a lovely experience to be able to do that and have nothing to worry about apart from where am I going to get some food, when am I going to get something to eat, and where I'm going to sleep tonight.
Back to basics.
It is, it's really back to basics, and all of those stresses and strains that you get in everyday life, you sort of step away from that because you don't have to worry about that email that you've got to put in. I guess every evening I portion a little bit of time for all of the work stuff that I've got to reply to, but during the day I don't look at my phone, I avoid it. And yeah, it's quite, I would say, spiritual journey in the respect that you've got nothing else to consider apart from just what you're doing there and then, and actually being there, being present.
That's what I was just about to say. It's this idea of being present, right? Is you're not thinking about what has happened. You're not thinking about what's going to happen. You're just enjoying the moment.
Yeah, and I think you enjoy the moment considerably more when you are present like that. Yeah. But you know, how many times do we do something? We do a journey, and you think, oh, don't remember going past there, because you've had things on your mind. And okay, you're still present with like the walk or the driving that you're doing, but you just don't remember any of it. It's like, where did it go? And yet, when you're present and you see the sunset, the sunrise, a particular bird that you've not seen, or the sound, or just that peace, it's quite good.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I'll leave it there because I know you've got some patients you've got to see.
Yeah.
But thanks very much for coming.
No, you're welcome.
Really
anytime.
Good, nice to chat, and look forward to working with you on that. We've got some new products coming up. So
yeah,
some testing.
I'm looking forward to seeing those, and I've got clients who've had a sort of sneak idea as to what's coming out, and they're kind of looking forward to it as well.
So yeah,
Yeah.
we'll chat soon. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tim.
You're welcome.